Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to talk about the Toaru spin-offs. Ever since the launch of the first Toaru spin-off, that is Railgun, Index has been on a roll. We have Accelerator, Dark Matter, Astral Buddy, Mental Out, and Railgun author has even entertained the idea of a Guna spin-off, even if there has not been any official talk regarding it. Branching off from the main storyline, these stories have mostly been centered on the level 5s, and the primary field of exploration has been the science side of the story, which makes sense since the main series, that is Index, is focused on the magic side. Now if you look up the basic definition of a spin-off, according to Merriam-Webster, it is something that is derivative of an earlier work, product or establishment. Especially a TV show starring a character who is popular in a secondary role in the main show. Popular shows like Friends, Different Strokes, Buffy the Vampire Slayer had spin-offs derived from their main storyline. The Marvel and DC universe also started out with a similar structure, with them trying to do stories on different characters basing on their popularity, role in the story, and even race and ethnicity. What's interesting to note, however, is that unlike Marvel or DC, Toaru doesn't feature characters of different races as much, at least not on the science side where all the spin-offs are concentrated. Nor does it have an expansive setting like different planets, which would make the act of spin-off making much more convenient. In fact, the science side spin-offs make it a point to restrict themselves to city level. What does make Toaru unique, however, despite the scope being limited to Academy City, Kamachi has managed to create a rigid but effectively concealed socio-economic divide among the students. And this divide was initiated with the difference in power rating of the students of the city. Now let's focus on the spin-offs one by one. To start off, let's begin with Railgun. Narrative structure and story elements can play a vital role in how easy or difficult it can be to create spin-offs. But to be honest, nothing flies without popularity. So let's look at the most popular character from the series, Misaka Mikoto. Never meant to be more than a background character, Mikoto caught the eye of the readers in the first Index novel, that is OT1 itself. Railgun fits appropriately in the narrative mainly because while Toma, Accelerator and Hamazura all belong to the science side, their positions make it difficult to accurately portray the normal everyday life in Academy City. Toma is caught up in magic side and world-ending conflicts 24/7. Accelerator focus, in case we actually dived into his past instead of whatever the heck the Axel spin-off did, would throw more emphasis on the deeper, darker and uglier side of Academy City, and the same goes for a Hamazura perspective, despite the fact that both Axel and Ham represent the opposite side of the spectrum of students in Academy City. Misaka here is incredibly convenient, even if the primary spin-off MC was supposed to be Kuroko and not her. With Mikoto at the center, you effectively get a narrative which forms an intersection of all these elements. It starts with the level upper arc, which showcases a standard science side conflict, but foreshadows something darker which we get to experience in the sisters arc. The Railgun SS novels also make use of Misaka's habit of denying the existence of the supernatural and throw in magic side elements without having to worry about breaking canon. As a storytelling tool, it works very well to fill in the gaps for stories which are just referenced in Index, like Sochiel's backstory and basically her reason for being in Academy City in OT5 and OT19. It also added more to Imagine Breaker lore by confirming that the dragon that came out of Toma's arm in OT2 was indeed his and not some sort of manifestation of Izzat's fears like Style had concluded. Similarly, we got the resemblance and possible connection between Misaka 5.3 and the Aiwas Horus reference that we got later in GT2. And funnily enough, we even got Shokuo Misaki's first appearance in Railgun and not in Index. The Railgun anime staff tried their hand at storytelling and regrettably made filler stories which most of the fandom hates but at least Kamachi loved. Basically, a good deal of world-building information was provided to us via the spin-off, and it helps make the world feel more dynamic and alive. What I appreciate here is Mikoto's lack of experience and perspective doesn't hinder the plot. In Railgun SS2, we have Lesser essentially be a partner in crime to Mikoto and have her explain and handle the magic bits while letting Mikoto handle the central conflict. The characters such as Saten, Kuroko and Uiharu also help in the process, although it has been poorly received and admittedly doesn't make much sense. The potential of Uiharu was teased in Index SS and was showcased in the Jailbreaker arc. The storylines that are initiated in Index but would likely be ignored are handled by the spin-offs. And the reason they mesh so well is because of the backgrounds and perspectives of the characters around whom a conflict is constructed. Like Index is to Railgun, Railgun is to Astral Buddy, and this brings us to spin-off number 2, Astral Buddy. Remember back when we still knew her as Drills-chan? This story expands on the concept of the Indian poker cards that were introduced in Railgun. Since Mikoto herself only became involved in that arc in the later stretch, it was a good idea to use a completely background character like Junko to reveal what the darkness of Academy City was up to. That is, using this technology that has brainwashing potential to influence an Esper's personal reality. You notice how the tone also shifts the moment the viewpoints are changed? In Railgun's Dream Ranker arc, we saw a set of events loosely connected to Indian poker and how the motive was to create an artificial soul and doppelganger. While in Astral Buddy, we see a group of scientists aim to create an ideal Esper using the same technology. And obviously the experiment was a failure and resulted in tragedy as always, but my point is the same set of story elements influence the world differently. And since Toaru has so many factions with so many different types of characters in the science side itself, we can have multiple things happening at the same time in different places in Academy City. The characters and their natural tendency to keep secrets or pursue different things at the same time makes it easier to use the same timeline and events to tell a different story. For example, the events of the Dark Matter manga coincide with the events of the Accelerator manga, so I'm sure you can see if there is a demand from the fan side, the author can easily expand on what every character was doing at a particular point in time, and it's exactly what happened. Furthermore, certain things in the future can also be foreshadowed easily. Major plot points, like Accelerator's possible backstory, of which we only got bits and pieces so far, could easily have major elements from the storyline of the Dark Matter spin-off. We know he was dehumanized and experimented upon to the point that he forgot his own name, but he was, and still is, so valuable that his ability was worth trying to recreate. Now take this with a grain of salt, but from what I remember, there was a fan Q&A session right after the airing of the Accelerator anime in the year 2019 when Kazuma Miki, the editor, hinted at a possible Accelerator's backstory volume in GT. It seems he stated that the contents are also too graphic for the manga medium to adapt, and so this wasn't included in his spin-off, which by the way I am not at all sad about because the Accelerator spin-off is kinda... Now whether or not we are actually getting a backstory is left to future releases and speculation since I can't exactly find the source of that interview anymore. I'm so sorry about this by the way, and yeah, it's been a while. I do remember the 4chan discussions from that time though, and this interview also clarified that Kamachi was the one who wrote the plots for the filler episodes of the Accelerator anime. But as I said already, take it with a grain of salt. In any case, if we do get a separate backstory volume for Accelerator, which actively describes the gruesome experimentation he endured, then I am 100% certain that it is going to tie into the storyline of the Dark Matter manga, which featured Espers from the Dark May project and how their personal realities were being forcibly shaped using the various aspects from Accelerator's personality, like his pride or his attachment. Given that in GT, Kamachi has teased Accelerator's real name indirectly using his and Anna's interactions, so whether or not we get a backstory volume, I think we can at least be sure that there will be some light thrown into what he went through to get to the number 1 spot. Fear not, if I do find the source to that interview, I'll make sure to either make a new video about it or make a community post. But since right now in the story Accelerator is in jail, in my humble opinion, now is a great time to finally publish the backstory volume and connect it with the bigger plot points in GT. The other thing that Kamachi exploits quite brilliantly is the multifaceted nature of his characters. For example, in Railgun Daihasesai, we see a pretty hostile version of Shokuo Misaki because that's partly how Mikoto views her, but in Astral Body and Mental Out spin-off, we see a more warm and big sister nature of her character. In addition to this, if one were to read Index, then we see a completely different side of her as well, since in Index, her affection for Toma is the major focus. It also shows her intentionally acting as a sort of little sister character, or the side to her that she shows only in front of him. NT also showed us a more depressing and desperate side to Shokuo, which wasn't seen in the spin-offs. Similarly, there's Gunha. He has exhibited the same personality in every media he has appeared in, but if the Railgun editor's words are to be believed, then it seems he has undergone similar sorts of hardships like Accelerator. This seems pretty odd and unbelievable, but if one were to consider the point raised by Olorus that Gunha actually doesn't understand himself and the fact that he actually murdered someone in cold blood in Astral Body, then we can see there is already an opportunity and conflict presented for exploration. Much like the MCU in shows like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where we finally get to see the life and world around characters who had very little characterization in the mainline movies of Marvel, in Index, the spin-offs also make sure to show each and every main character having their own group, which makes it very easy to write slice of life. This gives the respective series some breathing space and adds to their ability to tell good stories. It shows a synergistic relationship between the titles, which Kamachi himself describes as a sort of sibling bond, where the spin-offs act as sister series to the main story. In my humble opinion, we could have many more titles. Like, what if we got a Meguna spin-off which finally explained this image? What if we got a Gunha spin-off? What if Kamachi decides to break the mold again and Aihana, the number 6th level 5, shows up in a spin-off? What if there's an Alistair spin-off where his Keikaku until NT18 is laid out in front of us? What if? The title Toaru is so flexible it can handle endless what-ifs. So why don't you let me know if you have any Toaru spin-off you'd like to see happen? By the way, I hope the magic side also gets the same level of love from Kamachi someday. Thank you for watching the video, and don't forget to hit thumbs up if you like the content and subscribe for more. Have a nice day.